Introduction to Forensic Psychology. Forensic psychology represents a specialized field that applies psychological principles and research methods to legal questions. It encompasses a broad range of activities, including clinical evaluations, expert testimony, and research on legal issues. This interdisciplinary area often involves collaboration with legal professionals, law enforcement, and correctional staff to address complex behavioral and mental health concerns within the justice system. Understanding its scope is crucial for anyone entering this challenging and rewarding profession. The historical development of forensic psychology can be traced back to early 20th century psychologists who began applying their knowledge to legal matters. Key figures like Hugo Münsterberg, often considered the father of applied psychology, advocated for psychology's role in the courtroom. Over time, the field has evolved significantly, moving from rudimentary observations to sophisticated scientific methodologies and specialized subdisciplines. This progression reflects a growing recognition of psychology's valuable contributions to legal processes and outcomes. Roles of a forensic psychologist. Forensic psychologists fulfill diverse roles within the legal and correctional systems, often requiring specialized training and expertise. Clinical forensic psychologists typically conduct assessments, provide therapy, and offer consultation in prisons, psychiatric hospitals, or private practice. Experimental forensic psychologists focus on research, studying topics like eyewitness memory or jury decision-making to inform legal practice. Their work is crucial for developing evidence-based approaches. Beyond clinical and experimental work, forensic psychologists also engage in legal and investigative roles. Legal forensic psychologists might consult with attorneys, assist in jury selection, or provide expert witness testimony in court. Investigative forensic psychologists often work with law enforcement, assisting with offender profiling, threat assessment, or hostage negotiation. These varied roles highlight the dynamic and multifaceted nature of the profession, demanding adaptability and a strong ethical compass. Legal systems overview. Understanding the structure of the criminal justice system is fundamental for forensic psychologists. This system typically involves several stages: investigation by law enforcement, prosecution by the state, defense by legal counsel, adjudication by courts, and punishment or rehabilitation by correctional facilities. Each stage presents unique opportunities and challenges for psychological input, from assessing criminal intent to evaluating rehabilitation potential. Familiarity with these processes ensures effective collaboration and appropriate application of psychological expertise. The civil justice system, while distinct from criminal justice, also frequently intersects with forensic psychology. Civil cases often involve disputes between individuals or organizations, such as personal injury claims, child custody battles, or competency hearings for financial matters. Forensic psychologists may be called upon to assess psychological damages, evaluate parental fitness, or determine an individual's capacity to make legal decisions. The principles of due process and fairness are paramount in both systems, guiding the ethical practice of forensic psychology. Psychology and law interface. The interface between psychology and law is dynamic, with psychological principles offering crucial insights into legal phenomena. Psychologists contribute to understanding human behavior within legal contexts, such as motivations for crime, the reliability of memory, and the impact of legal procedures on individuals. This intersection helps refine legal practices, improve justice outcomes, and ensure that legal decisions are informed by scientific understanding of human cognition and behavior. It is a field constantly seeking to bridge the gap between scientific evidence and legal precedent. Despite the clear benefits, integrating psychology and law presents unique challenges and ethical considerations. Legal systems operate on precedent and adversarial principles, while psychology relies on empirical research and scientific methodology. This can lead to tension regarding the admissibility of psychological evidence and the interpretation of findings. Ethical dilemmas often arise concerning confidentiality, dual relationships, and the potential for psychological knowledge to be misused. Maintaining objectivity and adhering to professional guidelines are paramount for forensic psychologists navigating this complex interface. Assessment in forensic contexts. Forensic assessments serve a distinct purpose within the legal system, differing significantly from traditional therapeutic assessments. Their primary goal is to answer specific psycholegal questions posed by the court or legal parties, such as competency to stand trial or risk of reoffending. These evaluations are typically retrospective or predictive, focusing on past behavior or future likelihoods, rather than current mental health treatment needs. The findings are often presented in court, making objectivity and adherence to legal standards critical. The types of forensic assessments are varied and tailored to the specific legal question at hand. Common assessments include evaluations for criminal responsibility, child custody, civil commitment, and personal injury claims. Psychologists utilize a range of methods, including clinical interviews, psychological testing, review of collateral records, and behavioral observations. Each assessment requires a thorough understanding of relevant legal statutes, case law, and ethical guidelines to ensure the validity and admissibility of the findings. Forensic interviewing techniques. Forensic interviewing is a specialized skill crucial for gathering accurate and reliable information from individuals involved in legal matters. Unlike therapeutic interviews, the primary goal is often to elicit factual information rather than provide counseling or treatment. Interviewers must establish rapport, create a comfortable environment, and use open-ended questions to encourage detailed narratives. This approach minimizes contamination and maximizes the quality of information obtained, which is vital for legal proceedings. It requires careful planning and execution. Specific techniques, such as the cognitive interview, are designed to enhance memory recall in victims and witnesses without introducing suggestibility. This method encourages individuals to reconstruct the context of an event, report everything they remember, recall events in different orders, and change perspectives. When interviewing suspects, techniques focus on building rapport and eliciting information, while strictly adhering to legal rights and ethical boundaries. The aim is to obtain reliable statements, not to coerce confessions, ensuring the integrity of the investigative process. Competency to stand trial refers to a defendant's mental capacity to understand the charges against them and assist their attorney in their defense. This is a fundamental legal principle ensuring fairness and due process in the criminal justice system. A defendant must possess a rational and factual understanding of the proceedings and be able to communicate effectively with legal counsel. If a defendant is found incompetent, legal proceedings are typically halted until their competency can be restored, often through treatment. This assessment is distinct from criminal responsibility. Forensic psychologists conduct comprehensive evaluations to determine a defendant's competency. These procedures typically involve clinical interviews with the defendant, review of psychiatric and legal records, and sometimes psychological testing. The psychologist assesses various factors, including the defendant's understanding of court roles, legal procedures, and potential consequences, as well as their ability to make rational decisions and cooperate with counsel. The findings are then compiled into a report and presented to the court, often with expert testimony, to aid in the judicial decision-making process. Criminal responsibility, insanity defense. Criminal responsibility, often associated with the insanity defense, addresses a defendant's mental state at the time of the alleged offense. The core question is whether the defendant possessed the mental capacity to understand the nature and quality of their actions or to know that their actions were wrong. Legal definitions of insanity vary significantly by jurisdiction, with common standards including the Manhattan Rule, the Irresistible Impulse Test, and the American Law Institute ALI test. These legal constructs are distinct from clinical diagnoses of mental illness. Psychological evaluations for criminal responsibility are complex and require forensic psychologists to reconstruct the defendant's mental state retrospectively. This involves extensive review of psychiatric history, police reports, witness statements, and interviews with the defendant and collateral sources. The psychologist assesses the presence of severe mental disease or defect at the time of the offense and its impact on the defendant's cognitive and volitional capacities. The resulting expert opinion helps the court determine whether the defendant should be held criminally accountable for their actions or if an insanity defense is warranted. Risk assessment in forensic settings. Risk assessment in forensic settings involves evaluating the likelihood of an individual engaging in future violent or criminal behavior. This is a critical function, informing decisions about sentencing, parole, civil commitment, and treatment interventions. The goal is not to predict with absolute certainty, but to identify factors that increase or decrease risk, allowing for appropriate management strategies. These assessments are complex, requiring careful consideration of various static and dynamic risk factors. The implications of these assessments are significant for public safety and individual liberty. Forensic psychologists utilize both actuarial and clinical judgment approaches in risk assessment. Actuarial methods involve structured instruments that combine empirically derived risk factors to generate a statistical probability of reoffending. Clinical judgment relies on the psychologist's professional expertise, experience, and unstructured assessment of an individual's unique circumstances. Increasingly, structured professional judgment, SPJ, approaches integrate elements of both, providing a more comprehensive and defensible assessment. These hybrid methods aim to balance statistical rigor with individualized understanding. Offender profiling. Offender profiling, also known as psychological profiling, is an investigative tool used to identify likely characteristics of unknown offenders based on analysis of crime scene evidence. This technique aims to provide law enforcement with insights into an offender's personality, behavioral patterns, motivations, and demographics. Profilers analyze aspects such as modus operandi, victim selection, and crime scene characteristics to construct a psychological portrait. It is most commonly applied in cases of serial violent crimes, such as murder or sexual assault, where traditional evidence is scarce. While often sensationalized in media, offender profiling has both utility and significant limitations. Its effectiveness is debated, and it is generally considered a supplementary tool rather than a definitive identification method. Psychological theories, such as those related to personality, psychopathology, and social learning, underpin various profiling approaches. However, critics highlight concerns about its scientific validity, potential for bias, and the risk as misdirection if profiles are over-relied upon. Forensic psychologists involved in profiling emphasize its inductive and inferential nature, stressing that it generates hypotheses, not concrete facts. Eyewitness testimony. Eyewitness testimony is a powerful form of evidence in legal proceedings, often influencing jury decisions significantly. However, psychological research has consistently demonstrated that eyewitness memory is far from perfect and can be highly susceptible to error. Factors such as stress during the event, weapon focus, cross-racial identification, and post-event information can all compromise the accuracy and reliability of a witness's recall. These vulnerabilities highlight the critical need for careful evaluation of eyewitness accounts. Memory distortion and suggestibility are key concerns when assessing eyewitness testimony. Leading questions, repeated questioning, and exposure to misinformation can inadvertently alter a witness's memory, leading to false recollections or increased confidence in inaccurate memories. Forensic psychologists often serve as expert witnesses to educate courts and juries about these psychological factors. Their testimony helps ensure that eyewitness evidence is considered with appropriate caution, preventing wrongful convictions based on flawed memory. False confessions. False confessions occur when an individual admits to a crime they did not commit, often with devastating consequences for the justice system. Psychological research has identified several types of false confessions: voluntary, coerced compliant, and coerced internalized. Voluntary false confessions are offered without external pressure, perhaps for notoriety or to protect someone else. Coerced compliant confessions result from intense pressure to escape an unpleasant interrogation, even if the individual knows they are innocent. Coerced internalized confessions occur when an innocent person comes to believe they committed the crime due to manipulative interrogation tactics. Interrogation tactics and individual vulnerabilities play a significant role in eliciting false confessions. Tactics such as prolonged questioning, presentation of false evidence, and minimization of the crime's severity can increase pressure on suspects. Vulnerable populations, including juveniles, individuals with intellectual disabilities, or those with mental health issues, are particularly susceptible to these tactics. Forensic psychologists study these dynamics to advocate for interrogation reforms, such as electronic recording of interviews and training for law enforcement on evidence-based, non-coercive techniques, aiming to protect against wrongful convictions. Jury selection and decision-making. Jury selection, or voir dire, is a critical process where potential jurors are questioned to determine their suitability for service. The goal is to identify and remove individuals who may hold biases or prejudices that could prevent them from rendering an impartial verdict. Forensic psychologists often assist legal teams in this process, using psychological principles to identify desirable juror characteristics and develop effective questioning strategies. This involves understanding social psychology concepts like implicit bias and group dynamics to construct a fair and balanced jury. Jury decision-making is a complex social psychological phenomenon influenced by various factors beyond the presented evidence. Jurors' pre-existing attitudes, personality traits, and experiences can shape their interpretation of facts. During deliberations, group dynamics, conformity pressures, and leadership roles within the jury can significantly impact the final verdict. Research in this area helps legal professionals understand how juries process information, weigh evidence, and arrive at a consensus, aiming to ensure that justice is served through a fair and informed decision-making process. Victimology and victim support. Victimology is the study of victims of crime, focusing on the psychological, social, and economic impact of victimization. Forensic psychologists play a crucial role in understanding how individuals are affected by crime, including the development of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and other psychological sequelae. This field also examines factors that contribute to victimization and the interactions between victims and the criminal justice system. A deep understanding of victim experiences is essential for providing effective support and advocating for victim rights. Providing comprehensive victim support involves a range of therapeutic interventions and practical assistance designed to help individuals cope with the aftermath of crime. Forensic psychologists may offer trauma-informed therapy, crisis intervention, and psychoeducation to help victims process their experiences and regain a sense of control. They also assist victims in navigating the legal system, preparing for court appearances, and understanding legal processes. The goal is to promote healing, resilience, and justice for those who have experienced crime, recognizing their unique needs and vulnerabilities. Child forensic psychology. Child forensic psychology is a specialized area focusing on the unique psychological needs of children involved in the legal system. This includes assessing child victims, witnesses, and offenders, recognizing that children's cognitive and emotional development impacts their experiences and responses. children are particularly vulnerable to suggestibility and trauma, requiring highly specialized interviewing techniques and assessment protocols. The primary concern is always the child's best interest, balancing protection with legal requirements. Forensic psychologists conducting child custody evaluations assess parental fitness and the child's psychological well-being to make recommendations to the court. These evaluations consider factors such as parental capacity, child-parent attachment, and the child's preferences, if age-appropriate. When assessing child victims or witnesses, the focus is on obtaining accurate and reliable information in a child-friendly manner, minimizing further traumatization. This often involves using anatomically correct dolls, drawing, and developmentally appropriate language. The ethical imperative to protect children remains central to all aspects of child forensic psychology. Juvenile justice system. The juvenile justice system is a distinct legal framework designed for young offenders, typically those under 18 years of age. Its primary goals often include rehabilitation and protection of the child, rather than solely punishment, reflecting a different philosophy than the adult criminal justice system. Forensic psychologists working within this system address the unique developmental, psychological, and social factors that contribute to juvenile delinquency. Understanding these factors is crucial for effective intervention and preventing future offending. Psychological considerations for young offenders involve assessing their cognitive maturity, impulse control, peer influences, and family dynamics. Interventions often focus on addressing underlying issues such as trauma, substance abuse, or mental health disorders through therapy, educational programs, and family counseling. The aim is to divert juveniles from a path of chronic offending and promote their healthy development into responsible adults. Forensic psychologists contribute to these efforts by conducting assessments, developing treatment plans, and evaluating the effectiveness of rehabilitation strategies within juvenile detention centers and community programs. Correctional psychology is a specialized field focused on the psychological assessment and treatment of individuals within correctional facilities, including prisons and jails. Forensic psychologists in this setting address the complex mental health needs of incarcerated populations, which often include high rates of severe mental illness, substance use disorders, and personality disorders. Their work is crucial for maintaining safety and order within institutions, as well as promoting the well-being and rehabilitation of offenders. It requires a unique blend of clinical skills and an understanding of institutional dynamics. Treatment programs for offenders within correctional settings are designed to address criminogenic needs and reduce recidivism. These programs may include individual and group therapy for anger management, substance abuse, cognitive distortions, and social skills training. Forensic psychologists develop, implement, and evaluate the effectiveness of these interventions, often adapting them to the unique challenges of the prison environment. They also conduct risk assessments for parole decisions and contribute to crisis intervention and suicide prevention efforts, playing a vital role in the overall correctional system. Substance abuse and crime. The link between substance abuse and criminal behavior is well established, forming a significant area of focus for forensic psychology. Drug and alcohol use can directly lead to criminal acts, such as drug trafficking or driving under the influence. Additionally, addiction can indirectly contribute to crime, as individuals engage in property offenses or violent acts to fund their drug habits. Understanding the complex interplay of psychological, social, and physiological factors contributing to this link is essential for effective intervention and prevention strategies within the justice system. Treatment approaches for substance abuse in forensic settings are tailored to address both addiction and criminal behavior. These interventions often integrate cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, motivational interviewing, and relapse prevention strategies. Treatment may occur in various settings, including correctional facilities, drug courts, or community-based programs. Forensic psychologists assess the severity of substance use disorders, identify co-occurring mental health conditions, and develop individualized treatment plans aimed at reducing both substance use and criminal recidivism. The goal is to break the cycle of addiction and crime, promoting long-term recovery and pro-social behavior. Sexual offending. Sexual offending is a complex and multifaceted area within forensic psychology, involving the study of behaviors, motivations, and psychological profiles of individuals who commit sexual crimes. Theories of sexual offending often integrate developmental, cognitive, and social learning perspectives, examining factors such as early life experiences, cognitive distortions, and interpersonal deficits. Understanding these underlying psychological mechanisms is crucial for developing effective assessment and treatment strategies. This field also addresses the impact of sexual offenses on victims and society. Assessment and treatment of sexual offenders aim to reduce recidivism and enhance public safety. Assessments typically involve comprehensive evaluations of risk factors, psychopathy, and specific sexual interests, often utilizing specialized psychometric instruments. Treatment programs, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and relapse prevention, focus on challenging distorted thinking patterns, developing empathy, improving social skills, and managing deviant sexual arousal. Forensic psychologists play a critical role in evaluating treatment readiness, monitoring progress, and conducting post-release risk management, contributing to both offender rehabilitation and community protection. Domestic violence psychology. Domestic violence is a pervasive social problem with profound psychological dimensions, involving patterns of abusive behavior within intimate relationships. Forensic psychology examines the complex dynamics of these relationships, including power and control imbalances, cycles of violence, and the psychological impact on victims and perpetrators. Understanding the underlying psychological factors, such as attachment styles, personality traits, and learned behaviors, is crucial for effective intervention and prevention. This field also considers the societal and cultural contexts that perpetuate domestic abuse. Interventions for domestic violence address both victims and perpetrators, aiming to break the cycle of abuse. For victims, support includes safety planning, trauma-informed therapy, and empowerment strategies to help them escape abusive situations and heal from psychological harm. For perpetrators, interventions often involve anger management programs, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, focused on challenging abusive beliefs, and psychoeducation on healthy relationship dynamics. Forensic psychologists contribute to risk assessments, provide expert testimony in legal cases involving domestic violence, and develop evidence-based treatment programs, striving to promote safety and well-being for all involved. Terrorism and radicalization. The psychology of terrorism and radicalization explores the individual and group processes that lead individuals to adopt extremist ideologies and engage in violent acts. This complex field examines factors such as ideological indoctrination, social influence, personal grievances, and the search for identity or belonging. Forensic psychologists analyze the psychological profiles of individuals susceptible to radicalization, the dynamics of extremist groups, and the pathways from belief to violent action. Understanding these psychological underpinnings is crucial for developing effective counter-terrorism strategies. Counter-terrorism strategies from a psychological perspective focus on both prevention and intervention. Prevention efforts involve addressing root causes of radicalization, promoting resilience to extremist narratives, and fostering critical thinking skills. Intervention strategies include disengagement and de-radicalization programs that aim to help individuals abandon extremist ideologies and reintegrate into mainstream society. Forensic psychologists contribute by conducting risk assessments for radicalization, developing psychological interventions for individuals involved in or at risk of terrorism, and advising on public policy to counter extremist recruitment. Their work is vital in safeguarding national security and promoting social cohesion. Ethics in forensic psychology. Ethical practice is paramount in forensic psychology, guiding every aspect of a psychologist's work within the legal system. Forensic psychologists operate under strict professional guidelines, such as those set by the American Psychological Association, APA, which address issues like competence, informed consent, and avoiding conflicts of interest. The unique adversarial nature of the legal system often presents complex ethical dilemmas not typically encountered in traditional clinical practice. Maintaining objectivity and impartiality is particularly challenging, yet essential for the integrity of the profession. Common ethical dilemmas include managing confidentiality in a legal context where information may be discoverable by the court, and navigating dual relationships where a psychologist might have multiple roles with a client. Forensic psychologists must clearly define their role, the limits of confidentiality, and the purpose of their services to all parties involved. Objectivity is crucial, requiring psychologists to present findings fairly and accurately, even if they do not support the retaining party's desired outcome. Adherence to these ethical principles ensures that forensic psychology maintains its credibility and serves the interests of justice impartially. Research methods in forensic psychology. Research methods in forensic psychology are essential for building an evidence base that informs legal practice and policy. Empirical approaches are used to investigate a wide range of forensic questions, such as the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, the effectiveness of offender treatment programs, and factors influencing jury decision-making. These studies often employ methodologies from experimental psychology, social psychology, and developmental psychology, adapted to the unique constraints and ethical considerations of legal contexts. Rigorous research ensures that psychological contributions to the justice system are scientifically sound. Data collection and analysis in forensic research require careful planning and execution. Methods include surveys, experiments, archival data analysis, example, court records, and qualitative interviews. Researchers must navigate challenges such as access to forensic populations, ethical considerations regarding vulnerable participants, and the need for ecological validity in their studies. Statistical analysis is then used to interpret findings and draw conclusions that can be translated into practical recommendations for legal professionals. This systematic approach advances the field, providing reliable insights into human behavior within legal and correctional environments. Expert witness testimony. The role of an expert witness in legal proceedings is to provide specialized knowledge and opinions that are beyond the understanding of the average layperson. Forensic psychologists often serve as expert witnesses, offering testimony on a wide range of psychological issues relevant to a case, such as mental state at the time of an offense, competency, or risk assessment. Unlike fact witnesses, experts can offer opinions based on their professional expertise, helping the judge and jury understand complex psychological concepts. Their testimony must be based on scientific principles and reliable methodology. Communicating psychological findings effectively to the court requires clarity, objectivity, and an ability to translate complex jargon into understandable language. Expert witnesses must present their opinions in a neutral and unbiased manner, even when retained by one party. They are subject to cross-examination, where their methodology, conclusions, and credibility may be challenged. Preparation is key, involving thorough review of case materials, clear articulation of findings, and anticipation of potential challenges. The ultimate goal is to assist the trier of fact in making informed decisions, not to advocate for a particular side. Therapeutic jurisprudence. Therapeutic jurisprudence is an interdisciplinary field, but examines the extent to which legal rules, procedures, and roles produce therapeutic or anti-therapeutic consequences for individuals involved in the legal system. It encourages legal professionals to consider the psychological impact of legal processes and to apply psychological knowledge to improve the well-being of litigants, victims, and offenders. This approach shifts the focus from purely punitive or adversarial outcomes to a more holistic understanding of justice that incorporates psychological health and rehabilitation. It seeks to humanize the legal process. Problem-solving courts, such as drug courts, mental health courts, and domestic violence courts, are practical applications of therapeutic jurisprudence. These specialized courts integrate treatment and rehabilitation services with judicial oversight, aiming to address the underlying issues that contribute to criminal behavior. Forensic psychologists play a key role in these courts by conducting assessments, providing treatment recommendations, and monitoring participants' progress. The goal is to reduce recidivism, improve public safety, and enhance the overall well-being of individuals by fostering a more collaborative and psychologically informed legal approach. Future trends in forensic psychology. The field of forensic psychology is continuously evolving, driven by advancements in technology, neuroscience, and a deeper understanding of human behavior. Emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and virtual reality are beginning to be explored for their potential applications in forensic assessments, investigative techniques, and offender rehabilitation. Neuroscience research is providing new insights into the biological underpinnings of criminal behavior and mental illness, which may inform future legal considerations. These innovations promise to enhance the accuracy and effectiveness of forensic psychological practice. Future trends also include a growing emphasis on global perspectives and addressing evolving societal challenges. Forensic psychologists are increasingly involved in international justice issues, human rights, and cross-cultural considerations in legal contexts. New research areas are emerging in response to contemporary issues like cybercrime, online radicalization, and the psychological impact of mass trauma. The field will continue to adapt, integrating new knowledge and technologies to meet the complex demands of justice systems worldwide, ensuring its continued relevance and impact.